The November rain fell in sheets, turning Beacon Street into a river of reflected streetlights. Elena Hartwell stood beneath the awning of the Harrington Hotel, watching her dignity wash away with each passing car. Her thin cocktail dress, borrowed from Theo because she'd owned nothing suitable for a gala, clung to her skin, and her carefully applied makeup ran in dark rivulets down her cheeks. Richard had left her here. Actually left her. The valet had witnessed it all. Richard's raised voice, his theatrical gestures toward the assembled crowd of Boston's elite just inside the lobby, his final pronouncement that carried clearly through the glass doors. I don't date charity cases who embarrass me in front of important people. The important people, naturally, had watched with the detached fascination of theatergoers. This was entertainment to them. Elena's humiliation was simply another course in their evening of excess. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She'd embarrassed Richard by questioning too loudly why a gala claiming to support homeless youth had an open bar that cost more than her annual salary. By pointing out that the ice sculpture of a swan could have fed 50 families for a week. By existing, essentially, in a world that wasn't hers. The valet, a kind-faced man in his 60s, cleared his throat. Miss, would you like me to call you a cab? Elena checked her small clutch. $17. Her bus pass. Her work ID. Everything else, phone, jacket, dignity, sat in Richard's car, now somewhere on the Mass Pike heading back to his Brookline townhouse. I can't afford a cab. How much is the bus fare these days? $2.70, but... He glanced at the rain. The nearest stop is 6 blocks. In this weather, I've walked in worse. A lie. She'd never felt more exposed, more foolish, more completely abandoned than she did at this moment. But she'd learned long ago that you don't show weakness to strangers. You smile. You thank them. You walk away with your head high, even if you're dying inside. Elena had taken 3 steps into the downpour when she felt it, warmth settling around her shoulders. Heavy wool, expensive, carrying the faint scent of cedar and something else, sandalwood, perhaps. A coat, perfectly tailored, far too large for her frame. She spun around. The man stood in the rain, coatless now, watching her with an intensity that should have been unsettling, but somehow wasn't. Tall, perhaps 6'2", with dark hair plastered to his forehead and a face that belonged on ancient statuary, all sharp angles and serious lines. His suit, even soaked, probably cost more than her car. But it was his eyes that caught her, deep brown, almost black in the dim light, and desperately sad. I can't, Elena began, already shrugging out of the coat. He held up one hand. Then, with deliberate slowness, he pulled a slim phone from his pocket and typed something. He turned the screen toward her. You need it more than I do. Please. Elena blinked. You're not going to talk to me? He shook his head once, then typed again. Can't. Not won't. It's complicated. Something about his directness, his lack of pity, made Elena pause. He wasn't looking at her like she was a charity case. He was looking at her like she was a person standing in the rain who needed a coat. Then, thank you. She pulled his coat tighter. It smelled like safety, if safety had a smell. How will I get it back to you? Another message appeared. Don't worry about it. I can't just keep your coat. She touched the fabric. Cashmere blend, if she had to guess. Expensive. It's just a coat. No, Elena said firmly, surprising herself. It's not. And I'm not a charity case, no matter what. She gestured vaguely toward the hotel, where Richard's voice still echoed in her memory. I'll find a way to return it. I'm Elena Hartwell. I work at St. Anthony's Community Center in Roxbury. The man's expression shifted, something flickering across his face too quickly to identify. He typed, Marcus Blackwell. And I know St. Anthony's. Father Miguel helped my brother once. Marcus Blackwell. The name rang distant bells. Tech company. Something about security software. But Elena was too cold, too tired, too humiliated to place it. Then you know we're good people, she said. And good people return borrowed coats. The corner of Marcus's mouth lifted fractionally. Almost a smile. He nodded once, then typed a final message. Bus stop is 6 blocks east. I'll walk you. You don't have to. But he was already moving, positioning himself on the street side of the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, water streaming down his face. Not looking at her, but clearly waiting. Elena adjusted the coat around her shoulders and fell into step beside him. They walked in silence, true silence, since Marcus couldn't speak and Elena had no words left after the evening's disaster. But it wasn't uncomfortable, this quiet. It was almost peaceful, a reprieve from the performative conversations she'd endured all night. Marcus didn't ask questions she'd have to answer, didn't offer empty sympathy. He simply walked beside her, a solid presence in the storm. At the bus stop, Marcus waited until the bus arrived, then typed one last message. "Get home safe, Elena." She wanted to say something meaningful, something that matched the strange intimacy of walking through rain with a silent stranger who'd given her his coat. Instead, she managed only, "Thank you, Marcus." He nodded, and she climbed aboard. Through the rain-streaked window, she watched him turn and walk back into the storm, shoulders hunched against the downpour, and wondered if she'd ever see him again. St. Anthony's Community Center smelled like industrial coffee and hope. Elena had spent the morning fielding questions about the gala incident. Word traveled fast in nonprofit circles, and trying to salvage her reputation. Richard's accusation that she'd embarrassed him had morphed into rumors that she'd caused a scene, gotten drunk, made inappropriate comments. None of it true, but truth mattered less than narrative in situations like these. "Elena." Theo Walsh appeared in her office doorway, concern etched across his weathered face. "Father Miguel wants to see you." Her stomach dropped. "About the gala?" He didn't say. "But you know Miguel, he's fair. He'll listen." Father Miguel's office occupied the quietest corner of the center, walls lined with photos of decades of community service. The priest himself sat behind a battered desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, white hair gleaming in the afternoon light. "Elena, sit please." His voice carried its usual warmth, but his expression was serious. "I've been hearing concerning things." "Father, whatever Richard told you." "Richard Ashford has told me nothing. He hasn't called, hasn't stopped by, despite being on our board." Miguel removed his glasses. "But 3 other board members have called with questions about your conduct at Friday's gala. I need to understand what happened." Elena explained, keeping her voice steady, recounting only facts. Richard's anger at her comments, his public humiliation of her, his abandonment. She didn't mention Marcus or the coat, currently hanging in her apartment, because that felt private somehow. Miguel listened without interruption. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You questioned the appropriateness of the gala's expenses?" "Yes." "Loudly?" "Probably too loudly." "Good." Miguel smiled. "Because I was thinking the same thing. The Harrington Group's events have become increasingly ostentatious. We appreciate their fundraising, but you're right to question whether the means serve the mission." Relief flooded through Elena. "So I'm not fired?" "Fired? Elena, you're the hardest working person here. But I am concerned about this Richard situation. He's been pushing hard to consolidate decision-making among the board, and now I wonder about his motivations." Miguel leaned forward. "Your ex-fiancée's embezzlement nearly destroyed this center. I won't let someone else's ambitions threaten it again. Can you prepare a report on the gala expenses versus funds actually raised?" "Absolutely." "And Elena? That man who walked you to the bus stop." Miguel's eyes twinkled. "The one who gave you his coat. That was Marcus Blackwell, wasn't it?" Elena's cheeks warmed. "How did you?" "Nothing happens in Boston's nonprofit world without someone noticing. Marcus has donated anonymously to mental health programs across the city for years. His brother, Julian, volunteered here briefly before." Miguel's expression sobered. "Before his death. Marcus Blackwell is a good man, Elena. A wounded one, but good." The coat suddenly felt heavier in her memory. That afternoon, Elena researched Marcus Blackwell properly. The articles painted a picture. Tech prodigy, revolutionary security software, Fortune 500 success before 30. Then tragedy. His brother Julian's suicide 3 years ago, the trial against investors accused of orchestrating a hostile takeover, and Marcus's subsequent disappearance from public life. The photos showed a different man, confident, smiling, his arm around a younger, laughing version of himself. Julian. Before grief had carved those sad lines into Marcus's face. She needed to return his coat. The question was how. The answer came Tuesday morning when Theo burst into her office, waving his phone. "You're not going to believe this. Blackwell Technologies just donated $50,000 to our emergency fund. Anonymous donation, but Grace Chun, Marcus Blackwell's executive assistant, called to confirm the transfer. Elena's heart skipped. Do you have her number? 20 minutes later, Elena sat in a coffee shop in the financial district. Marcus's coat folded carefully in a bag beside her, waiting for Grace Chun. The woman who arrived was nothing like Elena expected. Early 30s, sharply dressed in a burgundy suit, with an expression that suggested she suffered no fools. Elena Hartwell? Grace extended her hand. Thank you for meeting me. Thank you for agreeing to meet. I need to return something to Mr. Blackwell. Grace glanced at the bag and smiled knowingly. His coat. I wondered where that went. He came back from the Harrington gala looking like a drowned cat. He was kind to me when Elena paused. It was a difficult evening. Richard Ashford is a snake, Grace said bluntly. Marcus told me what happened. Well, wrote it. He writes everything. She studied Elena with sharp eyes. You made quite an impression. Marcus doesn't usually involve himself with strangers. I don't want to involve him. I just want to return his coat. He doesn't want it back. But, Elena, Grace's voice softened. Marcus Blackwell is the most stubborn man I've ever met, and I've worked for him for 8 years. If he wanted that coat back, he'd have sent me to retrieve it. The fact that he hasn't means he wants you to keep it. I can't just keep a $1,000 coat from a man I met for 20 minutes. Then come return it yourself. He's usually at his office Wednesday afternoons. Blackwell Technologies, 20th floor. I'll tell security to expect you. Grace stood, gathering her things. But Elena? Be prepared for him to refuse it. Marcus doesn't take back gifts, and he doesn't do anything without meaning it. That coat was his way of saying something he couldn't speak out loud. After Grace left, Elena sat alone with her coffee, the bag containing Marcus's coat resting against her leg. The fabric still carried traces of that cedar sandalwood scent. Safety, she'd thought. But maybe it was something else. Maybe it was the scent of someone who understood abandonment, who recognized a kindred spirit shivering in the rain, and who'd given the only comfort he could offer without words. Wednesday afternoon, Elena told herself. She'd return the coat, thank him properly, and close this strange, brief chapter of intersection between their vastly different worlds. But deep down, in a place she wasn't ready to examine, she wondered if Marcus Blackwell was hoping for something else entirely. Blackwell Technologies occupied the 20th floor of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the November sky. Elena stood in the lobby, Marcus's coat clutched in her arms, suddenly aware of how out of place she looked. Her work clothes, sensible slacks and a cardigan, felt shabby against the marble and chrome. Security waved her through. Grace Chin had kept her word. The elevator ride felt interminable. Elena rehearsed what she'd say. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for the donation. Here's your coat. Brief, professional, final. No reason for their paths to cross again. The doors opened to reveal a minimalist reception area, all clean lines and muted colors. Grace appeared immediately, her expression knowing. He's in his office. Last door on the left. Fair warning, he's surprised you actually came. Elena's stomach fluttered. I said I would. Most people say a lot of things to Marcus. Few follow through. Grace gestured down the hallway. Go on. He doesn't bite. Marcus's office was unexpected, warmth amid sterility. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Harbor, but what caught Elena's attention was everything else. Bookshelves lined one wall, stuffed with worn paperbacks and technical manuals. A dog bed occupied one corner, though no dog was present. Framed photos showed a younger Marcus with his brother, both laughing, arms slung around each other's shoulders. Marcus himself stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the water. He turned when she entered, and Elena saw surprise flicker across his face, followed by something warmer. Pleasure, maybe. He'd expected her not to come. Hi, Elena said, feeling suddenly foolish. I brought your coat. Marcus crossed the room, pulling out his phone. His fingers moved quickly. You came all this way just for that? I said I would. And I wanted to thank you properly. For the coat, for walking me to the bus stop, for the donation to St. Anthony's. She held the coat out. It's freshly dry cleaned. He looked at the coat, then at her, then typed. Keep it. I can't. Why not? Because it's yours. Because it's expensive. Because I don't need charity. Marcus's expression shifted, something almost like hurt crossing his face. He typed rapidly. It wasn't charity. It was a coat, and you were cold. I wanted you to be warm. Is that so terrible? Elena's resolve wavered. No. It's not terrible. It's kind. But kindness from strangers comes with expectations. I expect nothing from you, Elena. He held her gaze while he typed. I gave you my coat because leaving you in the rain felt wrong. That's all. No strings. No expectations. Just human decency. Human decency is rare in my experience. Mine too. A long pause while he typed more. Maybe that's why I recognized it in you. The gala? You question their excess because you care about the people St. Anthony's serves. You embarrassed your date because you have integrity. That kind of decency is worth protecting from the rain. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been so focused on being strong, on not being a victim, that she'd forgotten simple kindness could exist without ulterior motives. I don't know what to say. Marcus smiled, a real smile this time, transforming his serious face. He typed, say you'll keep the coat. And maybe have coffee with me? Coffee. Or tea. Or hot chocolate. Grace says I need to get out more, and you seem like someone worth getting out for. Elena laughed despite herself. Is this your assistant's idea, or yours? Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Mine. Grace just agrees with me for once. He paused, then added, unless you're not interested. I understand if the whole can't speak thing is too complicated. It's not that. Elena set the coat down on a chair. I'm not good at relationships. My last one nearly destroyed my career. Before that, my fiancé stole from the nonprofit where we both worked. I have terrible judgment when it comes to men. I have selective mutism from witnessing my brother's suicide, and I avoid all social interaction. Marcus showed her the screen with a wry expression. We're both disasters. Maybe we'll cancel each other out. Elena found herself smiling. That's terrible logic. It's the best I have. Another pause. One coffee, Elena. No expectations. Just two disasters trying to be less disastrous together. Against every instinct that screamed caution, Elena heard herself say, okay, one coffee. They fell into a pattern. Coffee on Wednesdays became coffee on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Coffee became long walks through the public garden, despite the increasingly bitter cold. Marcus introduced her to Atlas, his 3-year-old golden retriever who'd been Julian's dog before becoming his. Elena brought Marcus to St. Anthony's, where he watched her work with quiet attention, typing observations later. You make people feel seen. That's a gift. They communicated in a dozen ways. Marcus's phone always ready, fingers flying across the screen. Handwritten notes on nice cardstock he carried everywhere. Sign language. He was teaching her, patient with her clumsy attempts. And gestures. The way he'd take her coffee cup before she could ask for a refill, remembering she liked room for cream. How he'd position himself between her and crowds, a silent buffer against the world. The gentle pressure of his hand on her lower back, guiding her through doors. Elena learned to read him. The tension in his shoulders meant stress. The slight crinkle at the corners of his eyes was his version of laughter. When he ran his hand through his hair, he was searching for words he couldn't speak. She learned he took his coffee black, hated small talk, loved old jazz, and played piano beautifully when he thought no one was listening. She learned he blamed himself for Julian's death, that he'd testified against the investors who'd destroyed his brother, but it felt hollow when Julian wasn't alive to see justice, that he'd retreated from the world because words had failed him when he needed them most, shouting for Julian to stop, to put down the pills, to wait just one more day. The words had caught in his throat then and never fully returned. Marcus learned Elena, too, how she deflected compliments but hoarded small kindnesses like treasures, that she'd been in 12 foster homes and learned early that attachment meant pain, that her ex-fiancé's betrayal had nearly broken her, not because she'd loved him, she wasn't sure she had, but because it confirmed her deepest fear, she wasn't worth staying for. Marcus wrote in response, he was an idiot. You're worth everything. December arrived with early snow. They were in Marcus's penthouse apartment, tasteful, expensive, surprisingly cozy, when Elena noticed the piano. A Steinway grand, sheet music scattered across its surface. Play for me, she asked. Marcus hesitated, then sat at the bench. His hands found the keys, and suddenly the room filled with Chopin. Nocturne in E-flat major, Elena learned later. But in that moment, all she knew was beauty and sadness intertwined. Marcus's shoulders relaxing as his fingers danced, his whole body communicating what his voice couldn't. When the last note faded, Elena found herself standing beside him. That was beautiful. Marcus looked up at her, and something shifted in the air between them. His hand lifted, hesitant, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone, the gesture achingly tender. Elena leaned into his touch. Marcus. He stood, slowly, giving her time to move away. She didn't. His hand slid to cup her face, and she saw the question in his eyes. Elena answered by closing the distance between them. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative. Marcus's other hand found her waist, pulling her closer, and Elena's arms circled his neck. The kiss deepened, 3 months of careful friendship igniting into something more. Marcus made a sound, not quite a word, but close, and Elena felt him smile against her lips. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus grabbed his phone with shaking hands. I've wanted to do that since the night I gave you my coat. Why didn't you? Because I wanted you to choose me. Not gratitude, not pity. I needed you to want this. I do want this, Elena whispered. I want you. That terrifies me. Me too. Marcus kissed her forehead. But maybe being terrified together is better than being safe and alone. Elena thought of all her reasons to run. Their different worlds, her broken trust, his complicated grief. Then she thought of Marcus walking her to the bus stop and pouring rain. Of his patient teaching, his genuine interest in her work, his quiet strength. Of how safe she felt in his silence. Okay, she said. Let's be terrified together. They didn't rush. Marcus moved at the pace of someone who'd learned that precious things required care. Elena, used to relationships that burned hot and fast before imploding, found the slowness both frustrating and healing. Christmas approached. Marcus invited her to his family's estate in Marblehead for the holiday. Isabel will be there, he typed. My sister. She's been asking about you. Fair warning, she's protective. Will she hate me? She'll love you. That's what I'm afraid of. If this doesn't work out, I lose you and Isabel loses you. Double the heartbreak. Then we won't let it not work out. Marcus smiled sadly. If only it were that simple. Isabel Blackwell was an art curator, blonde and elegant, with her brother's serious eyes. She greeted Elena warmly, but with obvious assessment. Over dinner, Marcus's housekeeper had prepared a feast. Isabel asked pointed questions about Elena's intentions, her past, her understanding of Marcus's condition. Elena answered honestly. She explained her foster care background, her trust issues, her recent professional struggles. I can't promise I won't hurt him. I can only promise I'll try not to. And if I do, it won't be intentional. Isabel studied her for a long moment, then nodded. That's the most honest answer anyone's given me. Marcus chose well. Later, Isabel pulled Elena aside. He's been different since he met you. Lighter. He actually laughs now, did you notice? He makes this huffing sound when you say something funny. That's Marcus laughing. I hadn't heard it in 3 years. Elena hadn't noticed, but now she thought back. Yes, that soft sound when she'd tripped over Atlas and blamed the dog for moving. When she'd attempted sign language and accidentally signed something inappropriate. Marcus had made that sound, shoulders shaking, eyes crinkling. He'd been laughing, and she'd given him that. On Christmas morning, Marcus gave her a gift, a first edition of Jane Eyre, Elena's favorite book. Inside, he'd written, For Elena, who knows about cold rooms and the warmth of finding home. You're my home now. Marcus, Elena cried. Marcus held her, stroking her hair, his presence saying everything his voice couldn't. She gave him sheet music, rare pieces by Satie that she'd hunted down at 3 different shops. I know you can play anything, she said, but I wanted you to have something that made you think of me. Marcus kissed her temple, then played one of the pieces right there, with Isabel and the housekeeper and Atlas all gathered around. When he finished, he signed slowly, making sure Elena understood. I love you. Elena signed back, clumsy but earnest. I love you too. They spent the rest of Christmas wrapped in each other, building something neither had dared hope for. A future together, one careful gesture at a time. January brought false promises of new beginnings. Elena and Marcus had been together for 2 months when Richard Ashford reappeared. He arrived at St. Anthony's during Elena's afternoon workshop, impeccably dressed and wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena, you look well. Elena's stomach dropped. Theo, standing nearby, moved closer protectively. What do you want, Richard? I'm here in my capacity as board member. Father Miguel requested financial reports from all departments. His gaze swept over Elena dismissively. I'm simply doing my job. That was a lie. Father Miguel would have warned her. But before Elena could respond, Richard continued. I also wanted to apologize for November's misunderstanding. I overreacted. The stress of the gala, you understand. Misunderstanding. Elena's voice hardened. You called me a charity case and abandoned me in the rain. I was drunk. I said things I didn't mean. Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice. I've heard you're dating someone new. Marcus Blackwell, isn't it? Quite the upgrade from a non-profit administrator. Leave. Now. I'm leaving. But Elena. His smile turned cruel. Men like Blackwell don't stay with women like you. He's slumming. Eventually, he'll remember where he belongs, and it's not with a girl from foster care who barely finished community college. Theo physically stepped between them. Out, or I'll have you removed. After Richard left, Elena tried to shake off his words, but they burrowed deep, finding the soft places where her insecurities lived. Men like Blackwell don't stay with women like you. That evening, she was quiet at dinner with Marcus. He noticed immediately, typing, what's wrong? Nothing. Just a long day. Marcus frowned, clearly unconvinced. Talk to me. Richard came by the center today. Marcus's expression darkened. His fingers flew. Did he threaten you? I'll have Grace file a restraining order. He didn't threaten me. He just said things. About us. About how different our worlds are. What things? Elena hesitated. That you're slumming. That you'll eventually leave. Marcus grabbed her hand, squeezing hard. He typed with his free hand. Listen to me. Richard is a manipulator. He wants you to doubt yourself, doubt us. Don't give him that power. But what if he's right? Marcus, look at us. You have a penthouse and a company worth billions. I have a studio apartment with a radiator that barely works. You went to MIT. I went to community college part-time while working 3 jobs. Your sister curates galleries. I serve soup in a church basement. And Marcus's jaw clenched. None of that matters to me. You matter. Your kindness, your strength, your integrity. That's what I love. Not your bank account or your degree. But what about your world? Your business associates, your investors, I don't care about them. Marcus's eyes flashed. After Julian died, I learned who mattered. And it's not the people at those galas. It's people like you, who show up every day for others, who question excess when everyone else celebrates it, who stand in the rain and still manage to be kind. Elena wanted to believe him, but Richard's poison had already spread, infecting the quiet confidence she'd been building. I need some air. Marcus stood with her, reaching for his coat. Alone, Elena said softly. Please. I just need to think. The hurt in Marcus's eyes nearly broke her. But she left anyway, stepping into the January cold, Richard's words echoing. He'll remember where he belongs. The scandal broke 3 days later. Victoria Merrick, now a state representative with gubernatorial ambitions, gave an interview to the Boston Globe. In it, she discussed the tragedy of mental health stigma, using Julian Blackwell's suicide as her centerpiece. She positioned herself as a champion for reform, conveniently omitting her role as lead investor in the hostile takeover that had driven Julian to his death. The article included photos: Victoria at charity events, Victoria with mental health advocates, Victoria looking somber and compassionate, and buried in the text, a single damning paragraph about Julian's inability to handle business pressures and his brother's subsequent withdrawal from society. Marcus called Elena that morning, his face ashen on the video screen. He held up his phone. Have you seen it? I'm reading it now. Elena's fury built with each sentence. Marcus, this is grotesque. She's using Julian's death to campaign. She's rewriting history, making herself the hero when she's the villain. His hands shook as he typed. I testified against her. The court found them liable. And now she's acting like she cared about mental health all along. Can you sue her? Grace is looking into it. But my lawyers say public figures have broad protection, unless we can prove malicious intent. Marcus ran his hand through his hair. The gesture Elena had learned meant desperation. I can't do this again. The trial nearly destroyed me. Having to relive Julian's last days, explain my mutism to strangers, watch them tear apart everything we built together. Then don't. Let me handle it. Elena, no? You don't understand what these people are capable of. I understand perfectly. Richard is already trying to destroy my credibility at work. Victoria is trying to destroy your brother's memory. They're bullies, Marcus. And I've dealt with bullies my entire life. Elena's voice steadied with conviction. I have contacts at the Globe. Let me reach out, provide context, tell Julian's real story. I can't ask you to fight my battles. You're not asking. I'm volunteering. Because this isn't just your battle anymore. When Victoria uses mental health as a political prop, she hurts everyone who struggles. When Richard tries to separate us with classist garbage, he attacks everything I've fought to overcome. This is my battle too. Marcus stared at her through the screen, something like awe crossing his face. Then, I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. And I'm not letting these people win. But Elena had underestimated Richard's vindictiveness. That afternoon, Father Miguel called her into his office. His expression was grave. Elena, the board held an emergency meeting this morning. Richard presented evidence of, he paused, choosing words carefully, financial irregularities in your department. Elena's blood ran cold. What irregularities? Missing receipts, unexplained expenses, discrepancies in the emergency fund. Miguel held up his hand. I don't believe for a moment you've done anything wrong. But Richard has 3 other board members convinced we need a formal investigation. He's setting me up, just like my ex-fiancée did. I know, but my hands are tied. Until the investigation concludes, you're suspended with pay. Elena felt her world tilting. First her ex-fiancé's betrayal, now this. History repeating, proving she'd never escape her past. How long? 2 weeks minimum. Elena, I will fight for you. But you need to prepare for the possibility that Richard has manufactured convincing evidence. She left St. Anthony's in a daze, Richard's words ringing in her ears. Men like Blackwell don't stay with women like you. Now she couldn't even keep her job, the one thing she'd built through sheer determination. Marcus was waiting outside, Atlas at his side. He took one look at her face and opened his arms. Elena walked into them, finally letting herself break. He's destroying everything. My job, my reputation, She couldn't finish. Marcus held her tighter, his chin resting on her head, steady and solid while she shattered. After a long moment, he pulled back and typed, We'll fix this. Together. What if we can't? Then we'll build something new. But Elena, I need you to hear this. He tilted her face up, making sure she met his eyes. Whatever happens with your job, with Victoria, with all of it, I'm not leaving. Richard is wrong. Your past doesn't define your worth. Your education doesn't define your worth. The only thing that defines you is who you choose to be, and you choose kindness every single day. That's what I love. That's what I'll always love. Elena kissed him then, desperate and grateful, pouring 3 months of trust and fear and hope into that kiss. When they broke apart, she whispered, Take me to Julian's grave. Marcus's eyes widened. Are you sure? I need to understand. All of it. I need to see where this started so I can help you finish it. Mount Auburn Cemetery was beautiful even in winter, snow softening the sharp edges of monuments and mausoleums. Marcus led Elena to a simple granite stone. Julian Marcus Blackwell, beloved brother, too soon gone. Marcus knelt in the snow, placing his hand on the cold stone. Elena knelt beside him, giving him space for whatever grief needed to surface. After a long silence, Marcus pulled out his phone and began typing. Not to Elena, to Julian. His fingers moved slowly, each word deliberate. Jules, I brought someone to meet you. Her name is Elena. You would have liked her. She questions everything, just like you did. She makes me laugh. She makes me want to try speaking again, even though the words still catch. Victoria is using your death for her campaign. I'm so angry, Jules. She drove you to this, and now she's pretending she cares about mental health. It's obscene. But Elena wants to fight back. She's not afraid of them, not the way I am. She sees their cruelty, and she doesn't flinch. I think you'd tell me to let her. You always said I protected people too much, tried to carry everything alone. I'm going to try to be braver, Jules. For Elena. For you. For everyone they've hurt. Marcus showed Elena the screen. She read it, tears streaming down her face, then took his phone and added, Julian, I'm Elena. I never got to meet you, but I see you in your brother every day. In his kindness. In his quiet strength. In the way he notices what people need before they ask. You raised him right, even though you were both just kids trying to figure it out. I promise I'll take care of him. And I promise we won't let Victoria erase your truth. Marcus read her words, and something broke in him. He made a sound, raw, anguished, almost a word. Then another. His voice, rusty from disuse, forced out, "Thank you." 2 words. Broken and painful, but there. Elena threw her arms around him. "You spoke. Marcus, you spoke." He nodded against her shoulder, trembling. When he pulled back, he typed. "First word since the trial. I've been working with Dr. Cross, but I couldn't, until now." "Why now?" "Because you make me believe healing is possible. Because you're fighting for Julian when you didn't even know him. Because," he paused, gathering courage, then spoke again, haltingly. "'Cause I love you." The words were rough, unpracticed, beautiful. Elena kissed him softly. "I love you too, and we're going to win this fight. For Julian. For us. For everyone Richard and Victoria have hurt." As darkness fell over the cemetery, Elena and Marcus sat close together, sharing warmth against the cold. Marcus attempted more words, his voice gaining strength. "Thank you," he whispered again, and Elena realized this was his way of showing her she was worth the terrifying effort of healing. That some things, some people, were worth breaking silence for. 3 months transformed everything. Marcus began voice therapy with Dr. Cross, progressing slowly. At Christmas, he spoke his first full sentence. "You saved my life." Elena was vindicated when Father Miguel's investigation exposed Richard's fabricated evidence. With Marcus's anonymous support, arranged discreetly through Grace, St. Anthony's exceeded its fundraising goals. Elena became director. Richard's final manipulation, approaching Marcus with a business proposal to reach Elena, backfired spectacularly. Marcus's lawyers delivered a restraining order. Richard's reputation crumbled as his pattern of abuse became public. Victoria's campaign faltered when journalists, tipped by Grace, revealed her role in Julian's death. She faced no criminal charges, but public opinion shifted irreversibly. On a February evening, Marcus brought Elena to the Harrington Hotel rooftop. There, he spoke carefully. "I love you. Will you build a life with me?" Elena said yes. Spring brought St. Anthony's grand reopening, featuring a mental health center named for Julian. Marcus gave a speech combining spoken words, sign language, and written statements. Elena watched proudly, no longer afraid of their differences. The final image, Marcus's coat hanging beside Elena's, 2 people who'd found each other in a storm, choosing to weather all future storms together. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.